For 60 years, oil and natural gas has lied to us. Their own documents have demonstrated how they've lied. They've poisoned our air, destroyed our environment, and spread misinformation to our public. And guess what? They're still doing it. Newly uncovered documents show that in the 1960s, the companies that would become big oil produced a massive study showing serious and long-term health impacts from the production of fossil fuels. They even enshrined these findings in a series of internal memos. At the same time, researchers at Harvard were completing their 6 cities study, finding damning evidence linking oil and gas development to heart disease, lung cancer, risk of stroke, Alzheimer's, eyesight deterioration, and even pneumonia. It was the end of the 1960s, and for the first time, America was seeing the true cost of oil and gas. In the 70s, the federal government, as we'd all hoped it would, swooped in and passed landmark legislation. Things like the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and the Safe Drinking Water Act. But don't get too excited, because when the Bush-Cheney administration passed the 2005 Energy Policy Act, and let's remember VP Dick Cheney is the former CEO of Halliburton, it included a bunch of exemptions for oil and gas. Oil and gas knew it had a big PR problem on their hands. The industry was killing people and harming our environment, but it decided to focus its energies on creating a lie so big that we are now in the biggest crisis of human existence. So, while staring down this PR nightmare of the 1960s, oil and gas turned to another industry dealing with something similar: big tobacco. Big tobacco and big oil traded strategies, marketing firms, and even executives so they could cross-pollinate the best and worst ideas to convince the consumer to act against their own interests. Remember those ads showing a doctor smoking a cigarette while holding a baby? These unhealthy industries went to work discrediting scientists and science itself. Much like big tobacco, big oil propped up its own researchers who were paid big dollars to prop up that big lie. This is the misinformation playbook, and they've been relying on it for the last 60 years. They knew.
Big oil and natural gas has spent nearly $1 billion on sickly, sweet advertisements like these.
Oil is a great industry.
A new day is in the making.
This is leading the way in reducing emissions.
While America suffers almost 350,000 deaths annually from health effects directly linked to oil and gas, and worldwide, 1 in 5 deaths is from the pollution caused by big oil. But that's not the only thing it's working to cover up. Rapid climate change fueled by oil and natural gas has led to the destruction of the natural world like we have never seen before. Wildfires ravage our precious communities and landscapes, as Coloradans are held hostage by oil and natural gas corporations. These companies lay waste to our ecosystems and blanket the air we breathe with toxic gases. Air pollution coughed out by their industrial sites choke our cities and leave some of them with failing air quality ratings. Oil and gas executives have known for 60 years this would happen. Despite all evidence to the contrary, and cracking open that playbook once again, oil and gas pushes the false narrative that their product is clean. With one side of their mouth, they are killing our environment, while with the other side of their mouth, they lie about how they're doing their part. What's worse is that while they are lying to us, oil and gas operators seek taxpayer dollars to clean up their mess. With nearly 60,000 wells invading our pristine Colorado landscape, many of them improperly abandoned and seeping toxic chemicals, there's nowhere left to hide. They knew.
From the very beginning, we were sold this idea that oil and gas was in some distant field away from our homes and our children's schools. But the industry has always been a parasite, taking all the resources it can find. Oil and gas operators are no longer in some distant prairie, not hundreds of miles away, but in our backyards, in our communities, by our parks, our children's schools, and in our open spaces. After decades of reaping and ransacking Colorado's remote lands, oil and gas is on our doorsteps, engaged in state-sanctioned theft of our private mineral rights. How did this happen? Didn't the government enact laws to protect us from this industry? It's the oil, gas, tobacco playbook at it again. Their tendrils have overtaken the very institutions designed to protect us. They found ways to bypass regulations, by politicians, and rewrite the laws that are supposed to govern them. Whistleblowers have revealed that one state agency that is supposed to protect us from this polluting industry has rubber-stamped thousands of unapproved and illegal permits for at least a decade, selling the soul of our state to feed growing corruption. Our own government, our own institutions, co-conspirators in the big lie, allowing oil and gas to twist our minds through state-sponsored propaganda. For 6 decades, objective and independent scientists and researchers have worked and confirmed what 1960s big oil knew.
The industry has an impact on a much larger geographical scale.
There are major health issues related to air pollution from the fracking.
And their message today is even more dire. But the big oil playbook demands that these brave scientists and researchers be silenced. Meanwhile, Colorado is in the worst drought we've ever experienced. And last summer, we suffered the worst wildfire season in recorded history. As human beings, we are intelligent enough to see through the big lie as we personally experience the toll on our environment. They knew.
Communities all over the nation are filing hundreds of lawsuits against the oil and gas industry. For so many people who live where their government refuses to stand up for them, it's the only resource they have left. With decades of legal precedents protecting the industry, it is really hard work. But we are educating the courts about the first-hand experiences of contaminated drinking water, ground tremors, noise, and odor nuisances, and a raft of health issues. Those scientists and researchers big oil is trying to silence and discredit are fighting back with more data, and they're becoming less afraid to speak up. Public hearings in front of regulating state agencies are filled with community members telling the truth about this lying and violent industry. Indigenous communities are rising up to convey the wisdom of centuries-old environmentalism. Even as I stand on our stolen lands, elected officials need to be held accountable and must side with the people and the environment first. Oil and gas floods the fight with millions of their toxic dollars. While we cannot match their dollars, we could beat their lies with the truth. It's time to light Big Oil's playbook on fire. It's time to fight back by educating ourselves and our communities. It's time to honor our Mother Earth and all her children. It's time. Colorado Rising for Communities knows the truth, and we are fighting for you. Visit us today for even more information on the big lie and how you can fight back. This is our air, our water, and our Mother Earth. We have the right to ensure a safe and healthy future for our children. They knew.
They knew for 60 years, and now you know.
It's time to fight back.
It's time to fight back.
It's time to fight back.
Learn the truth and fight back.
Join us.